Hi, I'm Gail Sokol, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about scaling, adjusting your recipe to fit your pans.
Welcome to Baking Radio. Learn the art and science of baking with author, educator, and award-winning chef, Gail Sokol. Whether you've been baking your whole life or you're brand new to the world of baking and you're looking to build your confidence and learn new skills in the kitchen, you're in the right place. This is Baking Radio.
On today's show, I thought it would be helpful to talk about how to scale a recipe. Or, in other words, adjust your recipe to fit your pan. So the word scaling, it can mean so many things to so many people. First, fish have scales. And when you prepare them for cooking, you need to scale or descale them to remove the scales off the flesh, right? You can also have your teeth scaled. But that's a whole other subject, and I'm not really trained to discuss that, so we will not do so. The definition I want to talk about is scaling a recipe. Scaling means to measure out the ingredients of a recipe for the quantity you need. You can scale a recipe by doubling it or halving it to adjust for the number of servings that you want. So in baking, if the recipe calls for a 9-inch round cake pan, and all you have is a 10-inch round cake pan, well, what do? Well, some people like to wing it, and I used to be one of those people. So there's trouble in that. A pan with too much batter can and will overflow in the oven, wasting your ingredients and creating a situation where you have to clean out your oven, and that's never a happy time. And a pan with too little batter, and your cake is as flat as a Frisbee. So neither one is good. So let's do it the right way. You need to convert the recipe to fit the size pan you wish to use. Now don't get scared. It really is quite easy, and it's not complicated. But it does involve some math. All right. Don't stop listening, because I know you're like, okay, I'm turning this off. All right, forget it. Stay with me, and don't be scared. So if I have a pan that I want to fill with batter, but the recipe calls for a different size pan, the first thing you'd need to do is calculate what is known as the conversion factor. Sounds ominous, but it's not. The conversion factor is just a number that you will quickly calculate and multiply each ingredient by to adjust the recipe to the exact size pan you are going to use. The conversion factor is usually calculated by taking the desired volume, the one you want, and dividing it by the original volume. So it's a fraction, desired over the original. An easy example. If I wish to double a recipe's ingredients, my conversion factor would be 2. I got that by taking what I want to have, let's say 4 cups of batter, and dividing that by what the original batter makes, which is 2 cups of batter. So the desired is 4, the original is 2, so it's desired over original, 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So I would multiply each ingredient by 2. Sometimes a recipe makes enough batter for 2 9-inch round cake pans. But let's say I want to change the amount of batter for the same recipe, and I want it to fit 2 10-inch round cake pans. What do? Again, let's find the conversion factor, or that magic number that I will multiply each ingredient by to adjust the recipe to the pan I want to use. Since the cake pans are round, you need to think about their shape and how much batter they can hold. All right? And allowing room for the batter to rise, it's 3-dimensional. It's not just a circle. It's basically a cylinder. It's cylindrical. Your cake pan is a cylinder. It's sort of a flattened cylinder, but it's a cylinder. So a round cake pan is really a circle with depth. And the area of a circle is pi r squared, but we also have to remember it's about 2 inches deep. So the volume because now from area we're going to go to volume because we want to fill that space with batter. The volume of a cylinder for your round cake pan is pi r squared times the height of the pan, which is the height. So it's usually volume equals pi r squared times h for the height of the pan. That's it. Since we're going from a 9-inch round to a 10-inch round, our conversion factor would be figured out like this. Just listen. All right. The volume of the 10-inch round cake pan, remember that's my desired, you want pi r squared. Now what's r? R is the radius of your pan. And if you realize you have a 10-inch round cake pan, the reason you know it's 10-inch is because the longest, widest part of that circular pan is 10 inches wide. That's your diameter. Half of that is your radius. That's 5 inches. And pi is that long 3.14, blah, 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 and I'm not even going to go into it, number. And that is what you would multiply by the 5 squared. So it's pi times r squared, 5 squared, which is pi 25. So 5 squared is 5 times 5. So it's pi 25 times 2 for the height. So it's 50 pi. That is your desired 50 pi. So what does this mean to you? It sounds like I'm talking from outer space. Watch, just listen. It'll come together in the end. Trust me, have faith. Now the volume of the 9-inch round pan, this is the original, is also pi r squared, but it's got a different radius, right? It's a 9-inch cake pan. So half of 9 is 4.5. So it's 4.5 squared times pi and times 2 for the height. So it's 20.25, which is 4.5 squared times 2, which is 40.5 times pi. So it's 40.5 pi. So now our conversion factor is the desired over the original, which is 50 pi divided by 40.5 pi. And guess what? You see a pi in the top and a pi on the bottom, they cancel out. No more pi to talk about. So your conversion factor, remember, is your desired over your original, which is 50 over 40.5. And if you divide it, it's 1 1/4 or 1.25 in decimal form. So you just multiply each recipe's ingredients by 1.25. So if your original recipe, let's say, had 2 cups of flour, converting that amount to your 10-inch pan, you would use 2 times 1.25, which is just 2.5 cups of flour. And you would do this for every ingredient in the recipe. So now you go back to your recipe, you multiply each ingredient by 1.25, and you have the correct amount of batter that's going to fit into your desired new pan, which is your 10-inch diameter cake pan. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Don't worry, it's not that hard. Now, let's do something a little crazier, all right? Let's say you want to convert a recipe's amount of batter to go from a 9-inch round cake pan to a 9 by 13 by 2-inch rectangular pan. What? What? Oh my goodness, this is madness, right? But you can do it. Think of what the volume of a rectangle is. It's just length times width times height. And we know the volume of a 9-inch round cake pan. We just figured it out. It's just the volume of the cylinder, right? The cake pan. So let's first calculate the desired. We want to convert to a rectangular pan. So the volume of our rectangle is length times width times height. So the length is 13 times the width, which is 9, times the height, which is 2. Multiply 13 times 9 times 2. It's 234. That's it. That's your desired. That's the top of your fraction of your conversion factor. And the volume of our 9-inch cake pan is pi r squared times height again. So it's the pi times our radius of our 9-inch cake pan, which is 4.5. We square it, we multiply it by itself, and we get 20.25. We multiply it by 2, right, for the height of the pan. And this time, we have to multiply it by pi. 3.14 we'll call pi. So 3.14 pi times r squared, which is 20.25, times 2 for the height, comes out to 127. So now we can calculate our conversion factor of desired over original, the rectangle over the round, and that is 234 divided by 127. It comes out to be approximately 1.8. And you're going to round up because you don't want to multiply by weird numbers. I don't like multiplying by weird numbers. So round up 1.8 to 2. And now all you have to do is multiply each of your ingredients by 2 to get to your original recipe to now fit into that larger rectangular pan. It's not that complicated. It's harder to say in words than it is when you see it in writing. So now you actually have the tools to convert any recipe to the exact pan you want. And you can keep notes in that particular recipe. Oh, when I go from a 9-inch to a 10-inch, it's 1.25 that I got to multiply everything by. You'll just know and you'll just remember because you'll write it down. It's pretty cool, actually. And you also got to brush up on your math skills, right? Well done, you. And what's nice is once you do these conversion factors, you'll always know how to do them and you can save them. So you'll just know in your head, oh, I know this is a quarter more. This is 2 times more. So one thing to keep in mind, if a conversion factor comes out with a strange fraction, you can round up or down and it will still work. So for example, a factor of 1.7, round up to 2. All right. So if you also get a conversion factor that's a little weird, like 1.3 or 1.4, easily round it up to 1.5 because it's easier to multiply ingredients by 1.5 than those strange fractions. Make it easy, but also make sure that you don't overthink it. So instead of guessing how much batter to use in a different size pan, you can now be a convert, a conversion factor convert. And it's not that hard. So if you want this particular how to do this scaling and change your pans to the desired size you want, you can find it in writing on my website, chefgailsokol.com. I thank you so much for listening, and on the next show, we'll be discussing the gluten game, how to create and control gluten in baked goods. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, my YouTube channel, and my website, chefgailsokol.com.